So we're going to go over a little bit about our curl pattern. So first and foremost, the follicle itself is like a circle on the head if you have straight hair. The more curlier hair you have, your follicle actually gets a little bit more of an oval shape. So what you get is that tension as it's coming out of that follicle, you're kind of scraping along that edge. So think of like scissors with like a ribbon, and you get that curl pattern as you scrape that ribbon across. That curl pattern is coming from that scraping across that follicle. So the more circle it is, the straighter your hair. The tighter that oval is, the more curl that you get in your curl pattern. So there's different type of follicles all across the head. Now, when we're talking about curly hair, we're going to talk about our lock system. LOC for all hair curly hair types. Leave-in conditioner, your oil, and then also a cream or control depending on your type of curl pattern and your hair texture. So when we're talking to our guest about it, we want to talk about hydration. With our leave-in conditioner, we want to make sure that their hair is towel dried very well, so getting a lot of that moisture out at first. Then you want to saturate with your leave-in conditioner from mids to ends. Now, when we talk about an oil, we want to separate it into the 4 quadrants. We want this oil to be actually penetrating, not just a surface oil like our Fabulous Styling Treatment Oil. We actually want to use our tea tree oil in the hair. When you're taken into those 4 quadrants, that's way you can saturate those sections and make sure it's not just sitting on the outside edge. Now, as far as our control or our cream, we have a choice of our defining gel or our styling cream in our tea tree line as well. Now, with this guest, I decided to go ahead and go to the defining gel to make sure we had a little bit more support. She has a medium texture to her hair. Now, the cream would be great to give her control around her face, but to really support her curls, I went with the defining gel. Next, I'm going to use one of our Denman brushes. I'm showing my guest how they come in rows. That way we can do a little bit of a rotation with her curls. Showing the guest the amount and the control of our defining gel. It's not going to get crunchy. It's not going to get flaky. But as you can see, we're applying it to that mids, down to the ends, and then resaturating close to that base. Now, what I'm going to show my guest here is a coil method. So using the brush, I'm showing her how we're setting in to the top part of the brush, and then I'm actually rotating that brush out, dipping the top end as I go. What that's given me is giving me control and detangling throughout the hair going from roots to ends. Now, as you can see, I'm going to take a vertical section in that hair. I'm sticking that brush right at the base and I'm twisting it, and watch as I see I'm going to dip that top of the brush down and then flip it back up. It's keeping the hair ends in that brush, but not twirling it like a round brush. You're dipping it out, and I can go left and right depending on which way I'm curling with the hair itself. So I'm going to show you one more time. You're going to see where that sets in the top part of that brush, and I'm dipping it as I go. With this next section, I'm going a little bit slower for you. I'm brushing out and pulling down that brush as I'm dipping it out, making sure it doesn't keep wrapping in the brush. As I go around the face, I'm making sure I'm twirling it away from the face. Now, what this coiling method does is it gives each curl a little bit more support by keeping it together. A lot of times with curly hair, you get frizzy real quick. So what this is doing is it's keeping the hair more gathered rather than separating. A lot of times with frizz, when we have frizzy hair, it's because it's too spread out. So the hold and the control with the defining gel that we used on this guest is going to keep those ends gathered rather than fraying out and separating. Most of our curly guests, their biggest problem is frizz. And one of the things with frizz is not to touch your hair and separate the products, but also educating them on how to support their curls from that wet to dry finished look. So right here, I grab a mirror so my guests can see a little bit closer of how to get that support a lot stronger right by her face. If you notice when I'm doing those curls, I'm pulling the hair more in an elevated pattern before I start doing the twisting motion. That way she gets that extra lift and extra volume that most of our curly guests love to have. This next portion is her bang area. She does have a little bit more of a side part. So I'm actually pulling it across her forehead and then twisting it back the way she parts her hair. I'm giving a little bit of lift, and when I do go to start blow drying with my diffuser, which our Neuro is great because it has the pop out diffuser, I'm going to pull that across her forehead. That way she gets that extra lift right on that part. Another big key is to use a chopstick. Once again, by using the diffuser to diffuse the air and keeping your hands less likely touching the hair, that way you're not going to break down that product. So I'm using my Neuro Grip blow dryer. I want to make sure I have the heat up elevated, but keep that speed down. The point of the diffuser is to not give a direct air and blow out the hair everywhere. You just want to diffuse the air for a light blow. You don't have to have right up in there like I'm doing now for the top portion, but this just gets it so I'm able to lift with my chopstick. I'm also showing my guest going left and right to diffuse and keep flipping back and forth. So I'm tilting her hair her head at a little bit of an angle to be able to get the hair in my diffuser to let it dry. Now for the top section, what I'm going to do is flip over her top section, give a light diffusing to that top section without having to get it real close. I'm wanting to dry and support the base on her top to give her that volume. And what I'm going to do is make sure I'm kind of lifting that top section, going across, flipping it back and forth, and almost just lifting that base up as what you normally do with like a round brush, and then flipping it back over to get that fullness right in front, giving a little over direction, pulling it to make sure it's not falling forward on her. Hitting it a little bit more dry, making sure I'm not spreading out those curls too much with my hands. But once you start to see that air blow the curls, back off on the speed of the blow dryer and make sure you're just kind of hitting it with a little bit of that higher heat, but still that low speed. Now, as we've got the hair about 90% dry, depending on how big of coils that you took with the section with your brush, you might need to go back through and separate it. This is a way to get a little bit fuller hair. Now, say you're ready for your second day hair and you're a little frizzy. Wave Refresher in our tea tree line is amazing for that second day hair. You can spray a little water or you can spray just the Wave Refresher, and it's like a sea salt spray without the grit. A lot of times, sometimes you get frizzier by the face, so you can add just a little bit more. It gathers that hair back together and refreshes and revitalizes those curls. As I'm doing here is I'm taking those bigger sections that I did with my coiling earlier and separating it into 2 to 3 coils, depending on how big of sections you get. A lot less frizz, a lot more support, and she can rewear her curls, which is the goal for every curly hair guest.